Happy New Year, everybody! Hello 2017 and goodbye 2016, you piece of shit year, hope you burn in hell! Well, to be fair, 2016 wasn't all terrible. We did see some pretty awesome indie games released this year, and today I'm going to be going over 5 of my favourites in Jum Jums' top 5 indie games of 2016. It was either this or Don Bradman Cricket. So 2 quick things to mention before I get into this. 1, this list is just my opinion, nothing more, so please don't get your berries in a bunch if my list isn't exactly the same as yours. And 2, even though I played my fair share of indie games in 2016, there were some that I missed. For example, I didn't play Inside, Hyperlight Drifter, Pony Island, or Tadpole Treble, so obviously they can't be on the list, because that wouldn't make sense. So now that we all understand each other, let's just get this over with. So starting us off at number 5 is Enter the Gungeon, a roguelike game reminiscent of Binding of Isaac or Nuclear Throne if it had a fetish for bullets. Because there were a lot of good indie games this year, I was kind of undecided on whether or not Enter the Gungeon should have got the 5th slot or whether I should have given it to something like Super Hot. But I think Enter the Gungeon deserves it more, mainly because of its replayability and inventiveness. Don't worry, I checked, inventiveness is a real word. This is a game that has a lot to offer. It has a lot of levels, a lot of bosses, a lot of NPCs you can find, and a shit ton of guns, most of which are interesting, funny, and usually feel very different from one another. You want to keep going just to see what you'll find next, and I think that is the sign of a good roguelike, don't you? Oh, shut up, who even asked you? Number 4 goes to Firewatch. Now, apart from having a story that's a bit too short and has a slightly disappointing ending, Firewatch is an interesting, intriguing experience and a perfect example of how to do walking simulators right. Really, all you do in this game is walk around exploring the beautiful forest and talk to your supervisor Delilah on your walkie-talkie. But sometimes things in the story will change depending on what you find, what you tell Delilah, what you choose to not tell Delilah, and slowly but surely, the intrigue and mystery starts to set in as you try to figure out what the fuck is going on in these woods. Yeah, you may have noticed I'm being deliberately vague about the plot, and that's because it's really the sort of story you should experience for yourself, so if you haven't, go do that. Number 3 is Stardew Valley, and you're probably already writing a nasty comment because this isn't number 1. Well, that's okay. Stardew Valley is still a great game and a very addicting experience. I had to tear myself away from it and force myself to stop playing just so I could get on with my life. It's the kind of game that's very hard to sell to someone who's unfamiliar with the concept of a farming simulator. Just try and explain why Stardew Valley is fun to someone who isn't into video games. Actually, don't do that. That sounds awful. But still, Stardew Valley is a very chill game that's easy to pick up and very hard to put down. That being said, if you haven't already played it, I don't think I would recommend it to you unless you have a lot of free time, because this game will consume your life. I'm not kidding. This is totally serious. Run. Number 2 is Darkest Dungeon. Yeah, I know, right? Darkest Dungeon only at number 2. Some people who know me will know that I absolutely love this game. I've been playing it since it was in beta, and I still regularly play it today. In fact, it's kind of bizarre to me that there can be another indie game that came out this year that I love more than Darkest Dungeon, because this game is fucking brilliant. Everything about this game just fits together so well. The bleak yet detailed art style, the simple yet fun fighting system, the genius stress system that adds a whole new layer of difficulty to the whole thing. Plus, this game has made me feel more tense and nervous than any horror game I've played. It's seriously one of the most engaging games I've ever played, and it definitely falls somewhere in my top 20 favourite games of all time. So now you may be thinking, if all that's true, then what indie game that came out in 2016 could you possibly like more than Darkest Dungeon? Well, funnily enough, this last game on the list is not only my favourite indie game of 2016, 2016, but also my favourite regular game of 2016. My game of the year, if you will. Yup, that means I like it more than Overwatch, I like it more than Dark Souls 3, I like it more than the Ratchet & Clank remake. Although, just as a side note, if you haven't already, check out the Ratchet & Clank remake, that shit is so fun. I like it more than any other game that came out in 2016. So, my number one favourite indie game of 2016 and my personal game of the year is motherfucking Owlboy, baby! Yeah, you can get angry with me if you want, complain about how it should have been Stardew Valley or Darkest Dungeon or something else, but I don't care. Owlboy is such a special game. It's funny, it's sad, it's beautiful, it's silly, it's entertaining, it's deep, and it's one of the very few games out there that I would recommend to literally everyone. No matter what kind of gamer you are, or even if you're not a gamer, I believe everyone can get a kick out of Owlboy. I have done reviews on every single game in this list, and whilst I don't recommend you check out some of the others because they're old and cringy, I do recommend you check out the review I did on Owlboy because I go more in depth on the game, and if you watch that video you might understand why I think Owlboy deserves the number one slot. D-Pad spent nearly 10 years making this game and it was absolutely worth the wait, and whilst I do think you should check out every game on this list if you haven't already, if you're only going to get one, get Owlboy and thank me later. Alright, 2017, bring it on.